Welcome to the Artist Academy podcast, a place where we focus on the business side of art to help you attract more customers, increase profits, and ultimately live a life of creativity and financial freedom. I'm your host, Andrea Earhart, and today's episode is all about emotional versus logical business decisions. This topic is something that I believe has been one of the reasons why I've had such a smooth mural career. Taking the time to just step back and think logically before reacting has saved me in many art business situations. There's so many things that happen and come up and miscommunication and whatnot, and just deciding what to do. But burning bridges over emotional reactions and decisions, versus looking at them more in a logical standpoint can cost you referrals. But arguably more important, it can cost you your peace of mind. And then in this episode, I'm going to be sharing some of my personal business experiences, plus ones that I see pop up pretty frequently with other artists, and just to give you examples of emotional versus logical situations and different ways to handle it. And I don't want to scare you by talking about some of these negative things that come up, when dealing with customers, because there's a whole lot of positivity in this whole art business. But, I just want to help you be better prepared for when these types of situations do end up, coming up. And I want to preface this episode really quick with just a little fun announcement in that we are expecting our first baby child in November. And, this topic, making emotional decisions and reactions and all of that has been on my mind because, as some of you can imagine, pregnancy can be a bit of an emotional roller coaster. And so I feel like lately I really had to step back even more and be like, okay, is my response logical? Is this the best thing to do? And I just want to talk about that really quick. So I, for the longest time, had a lot of reservations over, starting a family. I was very business focused. My whole life I've wanted to have a business and set myself up and, do all the things before starting a family. And I even had reservations about if I even wanted kids. I was like, no, maybe I'm meant to just be a business owner. And, I have the Artist Academy. I teach people there. Like that kind of, helps. But hormones came a knock this past January, and I just decided now is the time. I've prepped. I have my business where I want it to be, so there's no stress there, really. I have customers coming in. We have a good amount saved up. Like everything is just, it feels really good to be prepared. But I'm going to lie if I said there's like absolutely no fear. There's always the thing of like, is the baby healthy and whatnot? But in an art business standpoint, I definitely have this fear of, when I announce it, which we haven't yet. So you're one of the first to know after, people in the actual Artist Academy. And I have this fear of like, what if people see that I'm pregnant and they're not going to hire me? Oh my gosh. And so that's my my emotional brain thinking. And so, just on this topic of emotional versus logical, what I'm doing in that case is, making it very known that I have help. I have helpers here locally that help me paint and get to high places and all of that. So whenever it comes time to announce, whenever we do, probably here soon at some point, I am just going to be very, upfront and like, I can still do your mural projects, maybe up until like the last couple months. And so, there's just all these things, but it's mostly happy feelings. Just to talk about pregnancy really quick, I have had the smoothest time so far. I mean, it's still early. We're in the second trimester still, and due in November. But so far, no nausea, very little symptoms at all. Like there's some times where I'm like, am I actually pregnant? Like, cause it actually doesn't feel like it. And it hasn't really slowed me down much other than like maybe my mental state is more of like, less about growth and more about just like, okay, how do we, make just as much money as last year, but maybe work less because we're going to have a baby this coming year and I'm going to be working less. So I'm already trying to be in the position of working less, but making just as much, but not really in a growth mindset. And I think there's a big difference in like going out and chasing and, growing bigger and having higher numbers rather than just, maintaining. And I'm just at a spot that where, if my business stayed exactly where it is for 10 years, I'd be pretty happy. Like at the end of 10 years, I'd probably be itching to grow a little bit more or whatnot. But I've built my business up so far with the intention of working hard in the beginning, putting in those extra hours, just really hustling in the beginning in order to one day get to a point where I don't have to work as hard and I can focus on other things. And right now, those other things are growing a baby. And it's just nice to be in this place. And I'm having to remind myself again and again, like, this is why I hustled so far. And I can now relax a bit and do other things. And so we're so excited. And I'm excited to maybe a year from now, make a whole podcast episode about how motherhood has changed my art business and whatnot, because I have a very naive aspect or outlook about it. I'm thinking that it's going to be very easy because pregnancy has been easy, planning and everything is so easy. And so you really can't tell me any different. I talk to a lot of my mom friends. They're like, oh, there's going to be hard days. And I'm like, I don't know. I'm very naive about it. So we'll see in about a year. I'll make a whole episode looking into how it's changed my art business and if that was really true. But yeah, I think it's just going to be a new fun journey. But anyway, okay, let's get into the podcast episode. Let's talk about emotional versus logical decision making. And I'd be lying if I said that I just, came up with all of this stuff myself and I was always a super logical person, because not to stereotype, but I am female. And what I have found, and this is not all the time, okay, and I am very much, just generalizing, but as a female, our brains we're just more on the emotional side, because we care a lot more, we're more into our instincts, and there's a lot of good things that can come from that. Not saying being emotional is bad, but just, having a reality check and knowing this, I think is, and being just very real with myself and thinking, okay, my first reaction to a lot of situations is to maybe be hurt, or really, honestly, it's to be mad over being sad. I get mad pretty, I can get mad pretty easily. I'm not much of a crier. Like I said, most of my reactions are just to get mad. So I have to dial myself back and be like, okay, I know you're annoyed. Is there a logical reason for this? What's a better way to handle this? And my husband actually is an extremely logical person. I don't say that just because he's a guy, and I'm not going to generalize being guys. I know a lot of emotional guys too. Okay. I'm not just picking on women here. And I know a lot of very logical women, but in general. But anyway, so my husband is very logical, and I run a lot of my decisions, by him before I react. I'm not just saying that because he's my spouse or because, he has experience in business, that he's a good person to lean on. It's because his mind is very logical and hardly ever emotional. Even in our one-on-one little tidbit arguments, he hardly ever leads with emotion and can always look at it from a very logical perspective, which leads us rarely to fight. I mean, don't get me wrong. I tell him to, quote, stop that at least once a day. At least. And I roll my eyes at him frequently. And, oftentimes I'm the one that would get aggravated at something stupid that he's doing, but he rarely gets emotionally upset at me. And I'm not trying to give marriage advice or anything, or give you too much of an in on our relationship or anything of that sort. I'm just emphasizing the point that he's my logical side to lean on. And if you have a very logical person in your life who can look at things from an outside perspective, it might be a good idea to lean on them. If you have a friend who is equally as emotional as you, I don't think that is a good person to lean on. If you have a spouse that is equally as emotional as you, I don't recommend that either. But maybe if you could find someone that is just a very logical person, and how you can find that is they don't emotionally overreact very often. I mean, we all have emotions, especially when it's brought on by maybe certain situations, but in general, my husband just really doesn't get that mad at me, which is fantastic. Sometimes I'll poke him and be like, are you sure like I'm not doing something that's annoying you? Like maybe when I leave my clothes on the floor, like does that really upset you? Like, and really just try to get at him. He's like, no, I mean, yeah, you could pick it up, but like whatever, I don't care. Like he's just very easygoing. And so that's what I want to bring into my art business, because working with somebody who is easygoing and who is a very logical thinker rather than blowing up on a customer, that's what I want. I want to be easygoing, not to the point of getting walked all over, but I think just having that person, and just leaning on them is a really good thing. And if you don't have someone like that, I'm just going to for sure like post it in the Artist Academy Facebook group. We've made these Facebook groups, whether you're in the advanced group or just the free Artist Academy Facebook group, post it in there, because I do a lot of like digging on there, and like I don't let people in who are going to say something mean, and a lot of my customers are not in there, which is why I share a lot of, all the behind the scenes stuff. So I'll post something on Facebook onto my public page, and then I'll share it inside of our Artist Academy Advanced Facebook group, and I'll share the ins and outs, like, hey, this customer was really great to work with, or this one like had a lot of changes. This is exactly what I charged. This is what I felt like it was worth. I give more in details in the Facebook groups because I feel like it's a much safer place. And I know that my customers aren't going to see that, which I'm not talking bad on my customers, but I just think that they just don't need to see the stuff, the advice that I'm giving other artists of what I would have done differently, or how I think I got a really great deal out of this, how I made a bunch per hour, or maybe how I didn't. So I use those Artist Academy Facebook groups. If you have a situation where maybe it's one that I'm about to explain, if you're in a situation right now and you're like, I don't know how to handle it, or like you're feeling like really overheated by it, or you think you know how to handle it, but it's making you emotional, post it in there, because a lot of the times this is where I'm getting a lot of my content. People will post in the Artist Academy Facebook groups, mostly in the advanced group, and they'll be like, a customer asked for this, and oh my gosh, like is this unreasonable of me to price this much? And like we'll either hype you up or we'll talk you off a ledge. And so if you don't have anybody, in your life that you feel really comfortable asking, ask us, because I'm going to chime in too. I see everything that people post in there, and I will gladly help give you advice. Okay. Anyway, I'm going to go through a couple different situations of things that I've been in and other Artist Academy members, and just to go through the different ways of reacting. And I think the most common one is the customer wanting changes. And I don't have a thick skin on every topic that I'm about to tell you. Like, don't get me wrong. I'm not putting myself on a pedestal this whole time, but this one, I have a pretty thick skin about this topic, mostly because I started my career working for Bass Pro Shops, aka the outdoor store, if you've read my book. And I would paint for them, and I was around artists who were so much better than me, because I was still, my young 20s and new and learning, and I was just around art muralists who are much better. And there would be times where I would paint something and they would ask another muralist to come in and paint over it and make it better. And I'd be like, ugh, great, thanks. Oh my gosh, rip my heart out. And, there'd be times where somebody else, not even me, like they would finish a mural, and then a month later, the boss comes in. It's like, I want that changed. Like, let's just take that out. We're going to put in a big buffalo scene instead of the zebras here. And months of work would just be painted over just like that. So when customers want changes, that is how I came into this world, this muralist world. And that's just what I'm used to. So I've just had a thick skin over it. And, even just recently, I was painting with a customer, I was mocking something up for a customer, and I've had this idea for a long time. They have a local gym, and I was so excited because I've pitched this idea to a different gym here in the past. I'm talking like 4 or 5 years ago. I pitched this idea to have this big barbell with inspirational words inside of it. It's going to be beautiful, classic, black and white. And I was just in love with it. Just like classy. I was so excited. And so I pitched it to them because they mentioned that they wanted something custom in their gym. And I was like, this one, I've been waiting for the perfect spot. And they came back and they're like, that's great, but can we add neon to it? And I was like, oh, dang it. My idea of this classy, beautiful mural that I've had, on my wish list forever, you're just going to change it and whatever. So I started adding colors to it, and I was like, it's not too bad. And I'm actually currently in the middle of painting it as I'm recording this right now, recording these pretty early in advance to prepare for baby time. I'm getting months ahead. But anyway, painting it right now, and I'm actually really loving it. The way that they suggested it way more. I think it just adds way more a glow effect. Plus we're doing the black and white inspirational into it, and it kind of looks like tattoos. I don't know. It just looks really cool and just really in a fun, modern way. And I'm just really glad that they said that. So, which just goes to my point. A lot of people will request changes whenever you're either designing or in the middle of it. And a lot of times, especially in the beginning, it can feel like you're like, you don't like my idea. Or, the emotional side of us is like, why would they want that? No, like this is, but more often than not, the customer suggestions that I get actually make it look better. I mean, sometimes people knock off my creativity and I'm like, this could have been great. Now it's just basic because they don't have the budget or whatnot. But sometimes, they're looking at it from an outside perspective. And yes, they have their own tastes and it's going to clash with ours. But I think keeping an open mind when they want changes, either in the beginning and or at the end. I just want to, re-say, though I've still said this a million times, but I tell customers in the beginning, it is so easy for me to change things up and add something here or there or change a background or whatnot in the sketching process. But it is very hard to do it when we're at the end and I'm saying, look what I painted for you. And then they want to change stuff. It can be tough. So I just make sure to, reiterate, in the beginning, if you want something changed, and a lot of the times I'll ask, can you make this better? How can I make this better for you? Because really it's their eyes that are going to be looking at it every day. I'm going to have the picture of it and I'm likely not going to go back to that mural ever. I'm not going to go in that gem and I'm not going to go back, but they're going to see it all the time. So however they want it done is the way to go. Okay. That's number one of just not keeping it, personal. It's just because it's your style, we can mesh with other people's style. That's part of being a commissioned artist. So another one I do not have a thick skin with yet. I'm telling you, I am not perfect in these, but I just want to share. So customers not receiving their artwork in the mail. I don't know why customers automatically blame me when items don't arrive. They ask, where is it? And all these questions, like I know how the post office operates. And to be blunt, every single time some customers like, I haven't received my package yet. Where is it? I want to say, what does the tracking number say? That's your answer. I swear. I don't have special powers to make the package get sent to you faster. I can't contact USPS and be like, yo, where's the package? Can you get it to her faster? What happened to it? I don't know. I can send an inquiry and they will maybe or maybe not look at it because they're dealing with thousands upon thousands of packages per day. They don't really care about Susie's 5x7 print that I sent 2 weeks ago that it's not there yet. That's actually in another country. So that's probably why, because for any time I send something to another country, it takes an absurd amount of time to get there. And then I have people saying, where's my package? And I'm like, I don't know. What does the tracking number say? So obviously I'm emotionally sensitive to this subject, but let's take a step back and look at the facts. A customer paid for an item that they did not receive. Stupid tracking questions aside, what if you didn't receive an item? What if I didn't receive an item? You'd be like, where is it? Really, a lot of the times when I don't receive something, I'm like, it'll turn up eventually. I don't even email the people because I know what it feels like. And I'm like, it'll turn up eventually. If 2 months go by and I'm like, yo, where's my package? And it got lost. Like, I'm obviously going to be like, hey, I paid for this. You sent it to me. It didn't get to me. Can I either get a refund or can you send it again? And nobody likes to do this, right? Like this is another emotional thing. If you're like, it's annoying to send something again. I've had to send books. I've had to send prints again. And it just comes down to if I bought the insurance when I shipped something. And just between you and me, I shipped something big earlier this year and it pains me to think about it. It was like a $350 item and I did not buy the extra insurance. It came with like $50 of insurance and I was like, yeah, that's fine. Whatever. It's going to Texas. It doesn't matter. I did not buy the extra insurance and it never made it. And I filed an inquiry and I did all of the things and I'm out $350 because I didn't do that. And I know better. I know better. Okay. Like I didn't cry, but I did get mad. And I was just like mad at myself because okay, stepping back. So what if a customer contacts you and they're like, hey, I never received my stuff. And you're like, I'll check the freaking tracking number. And you do. So I track it for them and I just give them the same link that I sent them. I check it, I click it, and it automatically pops up USPS and it says delivered. And I say, it's been delivered. And they say, I don't have it though. This actually came up in a group of friends that I was talking to. I think it was last year. One of my friends sent out a piece of clothing and it didn't arrive. And so they were like, some of my friends were like, she's lying. Like, she's just trying to get more money for another item from you. Like, it's not your fault. Like, no, don't refund her. Like, blah, blah, blah. Like, and I chimed in. I was like, hello. No, it is 100% our fault because did you buy the insurance? And they were new and they said, oh no. And I'm like, that's okay. Sometimes I don't as well. But now you know, luckily her item was like a $16 item. So usually if it's under $100 or under $50, USPS comes with automatic insurance. So just so you know. If it's over that, you have to pay for a little bit extra. But so, instead of looking at it as an emotional thing and making up a story in our heads of maybe the customer got it and they're lying to you, or, maybe they're just wanting to get another item or whatever story we're making up in our heads, when you come across a decision that you have to make, I think that's the first thing I ask myself. Is there a story that I'm completely making up in my head about what happened? And what are the facts? The facts are that she didn't receive it. And that's it. I don't know why. I don't know if it's because USPS didn't do their job. I don't know if it got stolen. I don't know. Whatever it is, she didn't receive it, and I need to make that right. So the only resolution for this is you contact the customer and you ask them, and hopefully it was an original painting. Gosh, although this did happen recently to my friend Tiffany in the Artist Academy. We were talking about it. She sent an original painting to a customer and she didn't receive it. It probably got stolen off of her thing. It's just heart-wrenching. Because there's like almost no amount of insurance you can buy. Just covers that in your heart. And so she's like, what do I do? It's like, okay, just talk to her. Does she want you to send a new one? Do you want to just refund her? What does she want? And that's what I suggest to do in that. Most likely they'll say, ship me another one. That's probably the best response just because, they ordered it in the first place. They want it. Sometimes they'll just be like, oh, forget about it. It was for something and now the time's passed. Never mind. Sorry. And then you can just refund them. It doesn't matter. The answer is to communicate with your customer and say, I'm so sorry. A lot of times I'll be like, this was out of my hands because it's completely the post office situation, or it's just out of my hands. So just reminding them of that, I think is okay, even though that might be me, reacting out of emotion, just to remind them that it's not my fault. So don't be snooty with me. Thanks. And, just go from there. There's no need to assume and figure things out. It's just, let's look at it logically and the numbers. Another one is, say someone chooses a different artist over you. Like say maybe you both put in a bid, or like you have a friend who chooses a different artist, or you know a customer who chooses an artist that you introduced to them, or, there's so many different things. When someone has chosen a different artist. This actually happened to me recently with a friend group. One of my friends asked another one of my friends to paint a kid's room for them. And I was like, wait, what? Why wouldn't she ask me? Like, I knew her first. Why? Like, what the heck? And I was like, I know she probably thinks I'm just busy. And I know that, or at least that was the story I made up in my head, because my logical brain told me that a lot of my past interactions in the past year, a lot of people have come to me and said, oh, I had this and I gave it to this person because I know how busy you are. And I was like, wait, you gave away a big logo project to someone else? Why? And they're like, well, you're busy. You already have projects going on. I'm like, wait. Like, I would like to do that too. Like I can, or like a lot of people, I don't know. They just say to me, like, I know how busy you are, so I don't want to bother you with something. A lot of people say, hey, you're too busy. And so I hear that a lot. And I'm always like, sometimes like when I was writing my book, I was really busy, but like now, like, I can make things work, especially if it's something I really want to do. So just ask me. And so I've had to have those conversations with people. But so my logical brain was like, okay, my friend knows how busy I am, and she probably chose this other artist because she doesn't think she's as busy as me. And so that's that. But my brain just goes down these rabbit holes of like, wait, what if her daughter, who the room is being painted for, doesn't like my art? What if she likes the art of the other artist over me? Oh my, that I couldn't handle. It's like, I love this little girl. Like, and I think you can blame it on pregnancy brain or just anybody's brain. You just, it's like when you don't get invited to a party, like maybe likely by accident because people just forgot or, people just aren't thinking or whatever. Like it's the same kind of thing. You're like, you go down and it's like, what if they're dating someone now that hates me? What if? And you just go down this rabbit hole of negativity when the facts are, you could just come back to it and you can ask the person, which I did. It's like, hey, why? And she's like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Like, yeah, you're totally right. I thought you were busy. And I was like, okay, well, maybe next time, like, just like ask me, like, don't assume I'm busy. And like, she's like, oh, I'm so sorry. Like, anyway, moving on to the next one. Say you have a customer and they reached out to you for a quote and you're a newer muralist or a newer artist and you're so excited because these are two possible big projects that could probably take up like a week or 2 or 3. And you're like, oh my gosh, this is exciting. And this is actually an exact situation from an artist that's in the Artist Academy who I talked to recently. And they say, your customer says, hi, we'd like 2, big murals or whatnot. And you're like, okay, great. And so you might do like a quick sketch for them, be like, okay, it's going to be this much. And they come back and say, unfortunately, I think this is going to be priced out of what we're looking for. And this is actually an exact quote. And they also say, we may go with a vinyl application, which would be a fraction of the cost. Thank you so much for your time. And you go from being really excited to getting work, which may be some of your first, couple jobs. And, it could be a substantial paycheck for you, to hearing, I want vinyl instead. And I'm going to tell you, nothing says I'm cheap more than that. And I think it just comes back to saying in your mind, like some people have the budget for hand done murals and windows and all of that, and some people don't. And that's just that. That is the logical factor in that. And nowadays, just to be honest, like I get approached for window lettering sometimes. And if they want absolute perfect letters with complete straight lines, like really looking like it came out of a printer, I will sometimes refer them to vinyl because I know that a hand done letter in perfect lines and all of that, it's going to last a long time, but it's going to cost them like 3 times as more than vinyl would. And so if I'm getting a sense that they really don't want to spend that much and it's only going to be up for a short amount of time, that's also key. I will say, hey, you could get this printed on vinyl in one color for about $100. Maybe just do that and you can just peel it off afterwards. And then when you're looking for something that you're wanting more permanent and you want it's really stylized, it's not just, a font that you can print out, then call me. And sometimes people do that. And then sometimes they're like, oh, no, we want something more stylized. It's just about having that conversation with them. But so a member of the Arts Academy posted this exact situation in the Academy Facebook group here recently. And so we all kind of came to her rescue because she was feeling pretty down. And so she was thinking, things like, did I price this too high? Are my prices ridiculous? Which is the first thing we always think of, right? That emotional, like, oh my gosh, like people are going to call me out for trying to make so much money with a paintbrush. Like, oh, the starving artist is a thing. And you just go down this rabbit hole when no, they probably just don't have a budget for it, but or you could think in your mind, are they lying? Are they just trying to just get me down on price? Like, so that I do that. But if you look back and read or listen to their message, I don't think that they're trying to, get the price down. And I don't think that they think, the prices are crazy extreme. I think they just don't have the budget, just like they said. And those are the facts of that. Like they told you exactly what the situation was. Like, we can't afford that. Sorry, we're going to try to do it cheaply. I think they probably will realize that it's not going to last very long, but that's what cheap gives you. And I have had a lot a lot of customers ask me for a price. They're so excited, like whatever it is. And then I get excited, like, oh, that's a really cool kids room idea. That's a really cool this, that. And then I give them the price and I just don't hear anything back, which is like the most annoying thing, right? When they just ghost you, because then you're like, do I check in on it? Do it? And really, I'm at this point where like, I don't have time to check in with people anymore. If you want it, reach out to me. I will respond to you. But if you don't respond to me back, like, I don't know, unless it's a really, really big one that I really want. But in general, like if just a window painting or something, really anything $1,000 or less, I'm like, okay, yeah, if you want it, great. If not, great. I don't care. Another situation is whenever customers ask you to come back and fix something. So this has happened many times to me and or like artists in the academy where, you know, something happened, whether with the weather on a window painting or somebody hit the wall or something like that. Like it's happened a handful of times. And just recently, it actually happened to me. So I painted this big mural outdoors about 3 years ago. And the exterior paint that I use, it's a Benjamin Moore exterior, typically like a satin or whatnot. It typically sticks to whatever surface pretty well. I rarely get these calls yet. I mean, I have some logos that I did in pure black that looks like I did them yesterday when I really did them like 7 years ago. Like the paint can typically hold up well. So I was surprised to hear that a customer emailed me. And it's so funny because this email, I'm going to read this to you the way that I perceived it at first, because going back and reading it now, which I've actually gone back and read it like recently to be like, okay, she's really not meaning it to be that bad. But when I first read it, I took it emotionally and I was like, I basically put an emotion onto her email that had absolutely no emotion to it. So I'm just going to read it. Hello, Andrea. Your murals at blank like this place property are experiencing bubbling, flaking, and streaking. See attached photos. We have murals that are of similar age, painted the same surface material, and exposed to the same elements that are not experiencing this, which is what got us stumped from a maintenance standpoint. We wanted to reach out to you to troubleshoot these ideas and ask if you have experienced these before in your line of work and see if you have any suggestions for fixing them best. And that's how I read it the first time, which is not how she wrote it. So to me, the story I was making in my mind with this email was, other people have painted murals for us and they're just fine, but for some reason yours are bad and you need to fix it. And I was just like, It's funny. So I was looking at the photos and it's because of there's water running off of, it's like on a wall and there's a sidewalk above it and there's like dirty water that's running off onto the mural. So it's has this streaking effect. And to me, I'm like, obviously it's dirty water that's making the streaking, but she can't see that. She thinks the paint is just streaking dirty. I don't know. I was just like, duh. But I responded very nicely, letting her know that it's because of the water. And also there were some spots peeling off where it got heavy water, rainfall down, which typically a mural is completely fine with rain on it. I think it just, in these spots, it got way more rain and like, I'm not really sure why it was flaking off, but I was like, maybe I should have used a primer. I don't know. So I wrote back as nicely as possible and pointed out, like some of the spots that she was showing was absolutely, there's nothing we can do about it, and suggested that she get a bumper or something to line the edge so that there's not a, water runoff coming and streaking the mural. I was like, if you just clean it with soap and water, I really tried not to be very snooty about it, but I was like, just, clean it. It's just like every other surface. It's outside. It's going to get dirty. I'm like, duh. But I was just like, it's not my fault. Like, don't yell at me. When she was not yelling at me at all. She was just like, hey, we have a problem. Can you help us fix this? That's the tone she had. Like, really, that's the tone. I was just annoyed because when you're painting a project, especially in the end, like if they ask you to come back immediately or they ask you to come back years later, you're like, no, I've closed that portion. I don't want to work on that anymore. And actually that exact mural we worked on in the summer and it was really hot. And I look at it now and that's all I think about it was just discomfort. And I'm like, I don't want to go out there, but whatever. So I went out there myself and I looked at it. They tried to clean it off. The streaks won't come off. So they asked for a quote to come back and fix it, and they're going to put a bumper up. And so I gave them a quote, and yeah, it's a very logical business decision. And that was that. Like, there's absolutely no. But I just felt like when I received that, I was like, I need to stick up for myself. My murals are just as good as everybody else's. Like, and I was like, no, back up, like send a very nice email. And I didn't send it with attitude or anything. I was just like, these are the facts. This is what I can do, but you need to block off the area so that we don't get water. Because I'm just going to keep coming back and doing this. It's going to keep looking like that. Anyway, okay. And we've talked about a lot of like customer interactions, but a big one in thinking logically is when dealing with local artists. So like other artists, like artist competition or community and whatnot. And this topic, I'm actually going to make a whole episode about it coming up because I've worked with, competed with, met, been trained by, I've mentored, I've hired, and I just know many other artists. And it's not if you'll run into an issue with another local artist, it's when. And so I'll share my thoughts on this topic in the next solo episode. But just to lead you on this one last one, we've been talking a lot about customer interactions and emotional versus logical on that one. But I think a big one, aside from the customers and, other people, is coming back into yourself. And like maybe you're stuck on where to go next in your business and what steps you should take, and you're scared of making the wrong one. I would say it's the exact same as this. A lot of the times we are way too close to, our talents and our gifts and our situations, and to really see, to make a logical decision, which is why I run a lot of my decisions by my very logical husband. I'm like, hey, this is what I'm thinking about doing. This is the money it's going to bring in. This is how long I think it's going to take. These are the complications that I think are going to arise. Like, do you think it's going to be worth it? And sometimes I figure it out on my own. And sometimes he's like, yeah, sure, go with it. And just like him saying, yeah, sure, go with it. Whatever, try it. It's enough for me to be like, okay, great. Just like running it by someone else. But I think we all have the ability, to decide for ourselves as well, whether you want to lean on someone else or not. We all know what we truly want to do and what makes us comfortable and the next step that we need to take. And so, if you're in this position of like, should I do murals? So you've listened to the May Mural Month and you're like, oh my gosh, and look at all the money they're making and whatnot. Or, should I focus on prints or should I focus on this? Like, look at it from a logical standpoint. Like, how much money can this make you? How happy is this going to make you? How strenuous, you're going to have to travel for this job. Like, can you do this while kids are running around? Like all that, like look at it from a logical standpoint. And I actually, I did this whenever, oh my gosh, so I did this back in the day when I was like dating. Like if I wanted to break up with a guy, I would literally write down like positives of him and negatives of him. And then I really would realize that, okay, if I'm having to make a list, I should probably just leave this dude. And so, but you could do that with some kind of decisions that you're needing to make. What are the positives on one end? What are the negatives on the other? And write out the numbers, like what you can make in the amount of time. Like just write it out logically and think about it on paper. How does something look on paper? Because when it's in our head, we create all these stories of like, what if I'm on a mural site and I fall off a ladder? Oh my gosh. Like, also, in a logical standpoint, that would look like I would buy insurance and it would cost this much and it would protect me from any kind of ladder fall. Just it happened that would happen. There's just so many things or like, how am I going to get customers? Oh my gosh. Like, as a logical standpoint, on paper, you would say, I'm going to reach out to other artists and see how they are getting customers. Or I am going to reach out to customers and walk around with a flyer trying to get window painting. Or I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that and I'm going to do that. Write it out logically. And if you're not sure of how to write it out logically, I do student spotlights where I talk to my Arts County Advanced students one-on-one. You can book them. We also have virtual meetup calls every week that you can come in and you can talk to a group collective if you're having trouble making those decisions for yourself. And if you don't maybe have a logical person or have someone who has done it before you or believes in you quite yet, because no matter who it is, whether it's your spouse, your family, or whatever, nobody's going to really understand, what you can accomplish until you show them. So I'm like, I don't really advocate, asking someone else for business advice, especially art business advice, when they haven't ran an art business themselves, or, if they're still skeptical about it. Like I've obviously, like with my husband, I'll ask him stuff every once in a while, but I've like proven myself to him. He's like, yeah, you can do whatever you want. I've proven that to myself too. But if you're talking to people and asking them and they're not quite 100% on board, don't go with what they say. Like, come to me and I'll be like, hey, maybe you should, I'll give you personal advice on what I think you should do, or at least give you the options. I'm never going to tell you what to do, but I'll be like, if I was in your shoes, this might be the route I'll go in. Or you could come to our virtual meetups or ask questions with experienced artists. In the Artist Academy Advanced, we have artists who have gone through the program, long gone, and they're like, I'm just going to stay to give advice to people. And I'm like, thank you so much. And so we have veterans in there that can give you advice from something. Like, we've all been through it. We're all in that, we've been in that stage that you're currently in, and we can help you through it. A mentor can see your future way more clearly than you can. So if you're in a point where you're trying to make a logical or any kind of decision and you're emotionally into it and you're like, I don't know what to do and it's overwhelming you, really easy. Join the academy. It's really, really inexpensive. Sadly cheap. It's $32 a month for the advanced program and then $45 a month for the master's program. That's it. That's literally it. And for that amount, the amount that you spend on coffee per month, you can have your art business pointing you in the right direction with people who have been there. I started this a long time ago because I'm in this position now. And I could have gotten here so much faster if I had someone telling me, hey, yeah, do this, rather than me just freaking throwing things, and seeing what sticks. But whatever, we made it and I'm thankful for it. And I want to help you do it too, because really the introduction to this is very meaningful to me, helping you create a life of creativity and financial freedom. The hustle culture thing is getting knocked lately and all that, but there is something to it, working your butt off in order to get where you want to be and then having the mental peace while you're there to live your life in a better way. It's not all about money, but, having that creativity and the freedom and all of that, it just makes your life better. I was talking to Samantha, who I work with here locally and I've trained and mentored, and now she's on her way to make her first 6-figure year. And she just started, this will be, by the end of this year, it'll be about 3 years ago. It's 3 full years. And on her 3rd year, I'm going to just throw it out there. She's going to make 6 figures this year. And we were talking and I'm like, do you remember whenever, back in the day when we used to, live paycheck to paycheck and whatnot? And she's like, yeah. She's like, we literally, and that's just the way it was. We just thought it was. And she was like, to quote, she was like, it's just nice to have some blanket, a comfort. I'm like, yes, exactly. And, if I can do it, if she can do it, you can do it too. And so we're here to help you. And using Samantha as an example, she's made 6 figures fairly quickly and, because she has guidance and she worked her butt off to do it. And yeah, you can do it too. So, okay. artistacademy.co. You can apply for the academy. And I hope that you are faced with a decision here in the next week. And then this episode is fresh in your mind because it was meant to be there. And I hope you make the right decision and your art business flourishes because of it, and we don't burn bridges. And I want to change the narrative of artists are easy to work with, because there is a narrative out there that a lot of people say, artists are so hard to work with in so many ways. And I'm like, no. We can change this. We're just people just trying to figure out how to run a business, in the most logical, not emotional way. And we're just figuring it out. Give us a break. But I want to help you. And this is part of that. Okay. Hope you guys have a great week. I'll see you in the next episode next week.